Major Kate Thompson stifled a yawn as she made her way through the sterile corridors of Luna Base Alpha. The midnight inspection shift wasn't anyone's favorite duty, but as the base's head of security, she insisted on random checks across all shifts. The moon's 2-week-long nights had a way of making people complacent, and complacency got people killed in space. Her tablet chirped with another routine systems check when the first tremor hit. Kate steadied herself against a wall, frowning. Moonquakes weren't uncommon, but this felt different, more rhythmic, almost like. Major Thompson to control, are we picking up any unusual seismic activity? She called into her comm unit. Static answered her. That wasn't right. The base's communication system had redundancies built upon redundancies. The second tremor knocked her off her feet. Through the viewport beside her, she caught a glimpse of something that shouldn't be possible. A massive ship, its hull covered in what looked like crystalline growths, touching down on the lunar surface. Its design was like nothing in humanity's arsenal, and it was at least 3 times the size of the largest vessel Earth had ever put in space. This is Major Thompson initiating Emergency Protocol Delta. She broadcast on all frequencies, her training kicking in even as her mind raced to process what she was seeing. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Repeat. This is not. The viewport exploded inward. Kate's suit sealed automatically as the corridor depressurized, her magnetic boots keeping her anchored as loose equipment went flying past her into space. Through the breach stepped a figure that would feature in humanity's nightmares for years to come. Tall, insectoid, its armor seeming to shift colors like oil on water. Kate didn't hesitate. She drew her sidearm and fired 3 precise shots. The bullets bounced off an invisible barrier inches from the creature's carapace. It tilted its head, mandibles clicking in what she would later swear was amusement. Primitive, it said, the word somehow forming in her mind rather than her ears. But spirited. Your species shows potential. More of them poured through the breach, moving with an unsettling grace in the low gravity. Kate backed away, her free hand working furiously on her tablet. The base's main communications array was down, but she had helped install a backup quantum entanglement transmitter for just such an emergency. If she could just get the data burst through. The facility is secured, Overseer, another of the creatures reported. Their mineral extraction equipment is inefficient, but functional. The humans have been mining elements we can use. Very well. The first creature, the Overseer, turned its compound eyes back to Kate. You will inform your leaders that the Kryvek Syndicate now claims this system as part of its protection territory. We will return in 1 standard rotation to collect our first tribute. Resistance will result in demonstrations of our displeasure. Kate's fingers flew across her tablet, uploading everything. Sensor readings, suit camera footage, audio recordings, everything that might give Earth's defenders a fighting chance. The aliens were so confident in their superiority that they didn't even seem to consider her a threat worth disarming. That was their first mistake. If you're expecting us to just roll over, Kate said, hitting the transmit button, you clearly don't know much about humans. The Overseer made a sound like grinding glass. Laughter, she realized. Your species has barely reached its own satellite. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your communications are disabled. What possible resistance could you offer? The quantum transmitter in Kate's suit chirped softly, confirming the data burst had gone through. She smiled behind her helmet's faceplate. I guess you'll find out. The creatures departed as quickly as they had arrived, leaving behind a crippled lunar base and a message broadcast on all frequencies. Earth had 1 month to prepare its first tribute payment or face the consequences. What they didn't know was that Kate's data burst had reached its destination, a heavily shielded facility deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, where humanity's real space force was about to wake up. Colonel James Iron Jim Martinez stood before the massive blast doors, watching as generals and admirals from every major military power filed into humanity's best-kept secret, Their faces, previously etched with worry from Major Thompson's lunar transmission, now showed something else: awe. "Ladies and gentlemen," Martins announced, his voice echoing through the cavernous underground hangar, "welcome to Project Prometheus." The facility stretched for miles beneath Cheyenne Mountain, filled with ships that shouldn't exist. Vessels that combined sleek Earth aesthetics with technology centuries ahead of public space programs gleamed under artificial daylight. Engineers and crews scrambled across gantries, preparing for what everyone knew was coming. In 1985, we recovered our first alien craft. Martinez continued, leading the group past a holographic display showing 3 distinct crash sites: New Mexico, Siberia, the South China Sea. Each vessel was different, belonging to different species, different factions. While the world's governments argued about disclosure, a decision was made. We would learn, adapt, and prepare. Admiral Chen scoffed, her skepticism evident. "You're telling me the world's powers actually cooperated on something this massive?" Martinez smiled. "Fear is an excellent motivator, Admiral. The Cold War taught us one thing: humanity needed an insurance policy against threats from above. Project Prometheus was that policy." He gestured to the nearest ship, a sleek predator of a vessel that combined the aggressive lines of a stealth bomber with crystalline structures similar to those seen on the Kryvac ships. The U.S. Nighthawk, first of her class, powered by reversed-engineered quantum drives, armed with hybrid weapon systems that combine human ingenuity with alien tech. The Kryvacs aren't the first advanced species to underestimate us, but they might be the last. General Roberts stepped forward, his expression grim. "Why wait? If we have all this, we should strike now, before they return for their tribute." Because of this, Martinez activated another hologram, showing the data burst from Major Thompson. The Kryvacs rely heavily on predictive AI for their combat systems. Every move, every tactic based on sophisticated algorithms. But their lunar attack revealed something crucial. Their systems struggled to predict human responses. The hologram shifted, showing the moment Kate Thompson fired at the Overseer. The alien's shield had activated a fraction of a second late, barely noticeable, but telling. Their technology expects logic, patterns, efficiency. Humanity's greatest military victories often came from decisions that seemed illogical, even crazy, to our opponents. We're going to use that against them. A young officer, Captain Sarah Hayes, stepped up to the hologram controls. The Kryvac ships show signs of specialized adaptation for combat against energy weapons and quantum-based defenses, the standard arsenals of advanced civilizations, but they have minimal protection against kinetic weapons. They've evolved beyond the need for armor against primitive projectiles. Martinez nodded. Exactly. They've forgotten the basics while chasing advancement. Each of our ships carries a mix of reversed-engineered energy weapons and good old-fashioned railguns. The Kryvacs won't expect an inferior species to hit them with both. The assembled leaders moved through the facility, absorbing the scope of what humanity had achieved in secret. They passed training simulators where pilots practiced maneuvers that would be impossible in publicly known spacecraft, laboratories where scientists combined Earth metallurgy with alien composites, and armories filled with weapons that married human combat experience with extraterrestrial technology. "We have 27 days before the Kryvacs return," Martinez concluded, reaching a central command center bristling with holographic displays. "That's 27 days to prepare our response. They expect to find a primitive species ready to submit to their extortion. Instead, they're going to learn why humanity's chaos, creativity, and determination make us the most dangerous, primitive species they've ever encountered." The room hummed with renewed energy. Fear gave way to determination as humanity's military leaders began to plan. On one of the main screens, Major Thompson's final transmission played on loop. "I guess you'll find out." The Kryvacs would indeed find out. And Martinez intended to make sure it was a lesson they'd never forget. Commander Ashley Ghost Reynolds watched through the Nighthawk's quantum blast viewport as Jupiter's massive form cast shadows across the waiting Earth fleet. They tracked a Kryvax forward operating base to the gas giant's Trojan asteroids, the perfect place for their first strike. Shadow drive spooling up, Lieutenant Garcia reported from his station. "Ready on your mark, Commander." Reynolds took a deep breath. The experimental drive system would either give them the edge they needed or tear their ships apart. No pressure. "All vessels, this is Ghost," she broadcast to the strike fleet. "Remember your training. The enemy expects logic. We're going to give them chaos. Execute Shadow Protocol on my mark." The Nighthawk's engines hummed with a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. As the Shadow drive engaged, quantum duplicates of the ship flickered in and out of existence, each moving in slightly different patterns. To enemy sensors, it would appear as if reality itself was glitching. Mark. 6 Earth ships shimmered and became 30 apparent vessels, their quantum echoes solid enough to fool sensors but impossible to predict. The Kryvax base's automated defenses immediately opened fire, at all the wrong targets. "They're targeting the echoes," Garcia reported, excitement creeping into his voice. "Their AI can't process the contradictory sensor data." Reynolds allowed herself a small smile. "Launch kinetic penetrators, then close to energy weapon range. Let's show them both sides of humanity's arsenal." Rail guns thundered silently in space, launching tungsten rods at a fraction of light speed. The Kryvax's energy shields, calibrated for deflecting plasma and laser fire, barely registered the physical projectiles until they slammed through hull plating. Multiple impacts. Their outer defenses are, "Wait, Commander, they're adapting." The Kryvax base launched its own ships, their crystalline hulls shifting color as they attempted to track the real Earth vessels through the quantum duplicates. Reynolds watched their formation. Perfect, precise, and utterly predictable. "All ships execute Maneuver Tesla," Reynolds ordered. It was a tactic they'd practiced endlessly, inspired by lightning's unpredictable path to ground. Each Earth ship picked its own random course while maintaining the shadow drive effect, creating a three-dimensional maze of quantum echoes that scattered enemy targeting solutions to uselessness. The Kryvax ships fired salvos of energy weapons, their shots passing harmlessly through phantom targets. Their formation began to break down as their combat AI struggled to establish valid firing solutions through the quantum chaos. "They're splitting up," Garcia reported, "trying to isolate our real signatures." Reynolds keyed her calm. "Now, strike Team Beta." From behind Jupiter's largest moon, 2 more Earth ships emerged, their shadow drives creating a fresh nightmare for Kryvax sensors. They'd hidden there for hours, using the moon's radiation field for cover. "All ships switched to plasma cannons," Reynolds commanded. "Time to show them we can play their game too." The real Earth vessels opened up with reversed-engineered energy weapons, their shots finding targets with deadly accuracy, while the Kryvax still struggled to distinguish real ships from quantum echoes. One by one, the alien vessels began to fall. The base itself launched a desperate salvo of missiles, but without proper targeting data, they spiraled uselessly into space. Reynolds watched as the combined kinetic and energy weapon barrage systematically dismantled the Kryvax facility. "Base defenses critical," Garcia announced. "They're trying to transmit a distress signal." "Not today." Reynolds targeted the base's quantum antenna array herself, firing a precise burst that shattered the crystalline structure. "Bring us in close. I want their databanks." As Earth Marines boarded the crippled facility, Reynolds recorded a message on all frequencies the Kryvax used. "This is Commander Reynolds of the Earth Defense Fleet. Your assumptions about humanity's capabilities were flawed. Your protection is neither needed nor welcome. We will defend what is ours. Consider this a demonstration of our resolve." She switched off the broadcast and turned to her crew. "Well done, everyone. But this was the easy part. They'll be ready for the shadow drive next time." Garcia grinned. Good thing we have more surprises ready, Commander. Reynolds nodded, watching as Marines extracted Krivax data cores from the ruined base. The real war was just beginning, but humanity had drawn first blood. The Krivax would soon learn that underestimating Earth was the last mistake they'd ever make. Lieutenant Jack "Lucky" Harrison wasn't feeling particularly lucky as he watched the Krivax war fleet emerge from quantum space. The alien armada darkened Earth's orbit like a swarm of angry hornets, their crystalline ships now bristling with new weapons specifically designed to counter human shadow drive technology. "I count 700 vessels," his AI assistant reported, including 3 Planet Killer-class ships. Their shields have been modified to detect quantum displacement. From his command station aboard the orbital defense platform Sierra 9, Jack watched Earth's primary defense fleet engage the Krivax. The shadow drive advantage was gone. The aliens had adapted, just as Command feared they would. "Status on Operation Shotgun Wedding?" Jack asked, fingers dancing across his console. "Ready but untested, sir. 78% of defunct satellites are in position." "Are you sure about this?" Jack thought about the simulations he'd run, about the crazy idea that had come to him while studying old space debris cleanup proposals. Sometimes the best moves are the ones too stupid for anyone to expect. The Krivax fleet split into precise attack formations. Their energy weapons lit up space like artificial stars, overwhelming the shields of Earth's outermost defensive platforms. 2 Earth ships vanished in quantum fire before they could even return fire. "Sierra platforms 7 through 12 are gone," the AI reported. "The Planet Killers are moving into position for orbital bombardment." Jack opened a channel to Earth Defense Command. "This is Harrison. Request permission to execute Operation Shotgun Wedding." There was a pause that felt like eternity. Then Colonel Martinez's voice. "Permission granted, Lieutenant. Make it count." Jack took a deep breath and activated his command sequence. Across Earth's orbit, thousands of defunct satellites, everything from old weather monitors to abandoned space station components, received their final commands. "Initiating magnetic pulse sequence," Jack announced, firing maneuvering thrusters. The space junk, carefully positioned over months of quiet preparation, began to move. Small thrusters, hastily attached in secret spacewalks, pushed the debris into carefully calculated trajectories. The Krivax ships ignored them. Their sensors were calibrated for energy weapons and quantum signatures, not simple debris. "First wave impact in 5 seconds, the AI announced. A dead communications satellite, accelerated by gravity and strategic thruster burns, slammed into a Krivax cruiser at over 20,000 miles per hour. The alien vessel's shields, designed to repel energy weapons, did nothing to stop simple kinetic impact. The crystalline hull shattered like glass. "All platforms, execute debris field expansion," Jack ordered. More satellites began to break apart, creating an expanding cloud of hypervelocity shrapnel. The Krivax fleet's perfect formations began to break as they tried to avoid the deadly rain of primitive debris. "Sir, the Planet Killers are repositioning TOW." The largest piece of debris, a decommissioned space station module, struck one of the massive alien ships. Its shield flickered uselessly against the physical impact. Secondary explosions chained through its hull as oxygen tanks and fuel cells detonated. "They're falling back," someone shouted over the comm. "The debris field is forcing them to abandon their attack vectors." Jack allowed himself a grim smile as he watched the mighty Krivax fleet retreat from what amounted to a carefully orchestrated cloud of space trash. Their advanced shields meant nothing against simple physics. "All platforms," he broadcast, "maintain debris field coverage. Don't let them regroup." The remaining Krivax ships attempted to quantum jump away, but the expanding debris field made it impossible to establish stable jump points. They were forced to retreat under conventional power, their fleet in disarray. As the last alien ships disappeared past lunar orbit, cheers erupted across all channels. Earth had survived its first major assault. "Lucky Harrison, Colonel Martinez's voice crackled over his private channel. "You just rewrote the book on orbital defense. But they'll be back, and they won't fall for this twice." Jack watched the debris field glinting in Earth's sunlight, a new artificial ring of humanity's determination. "No, sir, they won't. But that's why it's just Phase 1. In the depths of space, the retreating Kryvax fleet nursed their wounds and their wounded pride, while Earth's defenders prepared for the next round. The real war was just beginning." Captain Morgan Rafe Blackwood crouched in the modified cargo hold of her mining vessel, the prospector, watching the asteroid fields dance through enhanced sensors. Her crew of 15, former miners turned warriors, waited in silence. Their ship, like dozens of others scattered throughout the belt, had been transformed from a simple resource gatherer into something far more deadly. "Kryvax supply convoy detected," her sensor officer whispered, as if the enemy could hear through space. 6 cargo vessels, 2 escorts. They're following the projected route." Morgan smiled. The Kryvax were nothing if not consistent. Their eye-driven navigation systems always chose the most efficient paths through the asteroid field. That predictability would cost them. "Status on the mineral shroud?" she asked. "Holding stable. We're reading as background radiation and mineral deposits to their sensors." The discovery that certain mineral combinations could fool Kryvax sensors had been accidental. A desperate mining crew hiding from a patrol had noticed the alien ships passing by without detecting them. Now it was the cornerstone of humanity's guerrilla warfare strategy in the belt. "All ships, execute Operation Fool's Gold," Morgan broadcast on their secure quantum channel. Around the asteroid field, other modified mining ships acknowledge. The prospector's engines hummed to life, their sound dampened by experimental technology. Their mining laser, now modified with military-grade focusing crystals, powered up silently. The Kryvax convoy drew closer, their crystalline ships refracting light from distant stars. "Remember," Morgan reminded her crew, "we hit the engines first. No survivors means no adaptation to our tactics." The convoy entered the kill zone, a section of the asteroid field that Morgan's people had carefully arranged over weeks. Microthrusters attached to smaller rocks began firing, creating an artificial debris flow that would force the Kryvax ships to adjust their course. "They're taking the bait," her tactical officer reported, adjusting course exactly as predicted. The Kryvax ships followed their programmed protocols, shifting to a pre-calculated safe route, directly into Morgan's trap. "All ships, weapons free. Show these pirates how real space raiders fight." 6 modified mining ships emerged from their mineral shrouds simultaneously, their enhanced mining lasers slicing through the escort's engines before they could raise shields. The cargo vessels, programmed to scatter impressive evasion patterns, flew right into the firing marks of 6 more hidden ships. "Direct hits on all targets," her tactical officer reported with grim satisfaction. "Their shields aren't designed to handle concentrated mining laser frequencies." The battle, if it could be called that, was over in seconds. No distress calls made it out through the asteroid field's natural interference. The Kryvax would find only debris when they investigated, indistinguishable from normal asteroid collisions. As her crews began the rapid salvage operation, Morgan recorded their findings. Cargo manifest shows raw materials for quantum shield production. They're trying to establish a manufacturing base somewhere in the system. She transmitted the data via secure quantum burst to Earth Command, then turned to her crew. "Strip everything useful. We leave no evidence this was anything but a tragic navigation accident in the Veld." Hours later, as the prospector resumed its hiding position within a mineral-rich asteroid, Morgan updated their success board. 37 Kryvax convoys destroyed, 0 losses on their side. The belt was becoming a graveyard for the alien supply lines. Her comm officer handed her a decrypt of the latest Kryvax transmission they'd intercepted. Their enemies were becoming desperate, offering increased payment for armed escorts through the belt. Some of their ships were even avoiding the asteroid fields entirely, taking longer routes that strained their resources. "Captain," her XO said, studying sensor readings, "Command reports similar successes in the Kuiper Belt and near Mars. The Kryvax are losing more ships to accidents than they ever did to direct combat." Morgan nodded, watching her crew efficiently return their ship to its disguise as a simple mining vessel. The Kryvax had expected to fight warships. Instead, they were being bled dry by the very miners they'd initially dismissed as irrelevant. "Send word to the other cells," she ordered. "The Belt massacres continue. Let's remind these advanced aliens why humans were always the apex predator in any environment we entered." As the prospector powered down to waiting mode, Morgan allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes the most primitive hunters were the deadliest, especially when they knew their territory better than their prey. Major Derek Hunter Rodriguez studied the holographic display of Phobos, watching thermal patterns dance across the Martian moon's cratered surface. After weeks of surveillance, his team had finally confirmed their suspicions. The Kryvax had built their regional headquarters inside the largest crater, using the moon's natural caverns as cover. Radiation signature analysis complete. Lieutenant Emma Foster reported, her voice low despite their secure bunker deep under the Martian surface. "They're using quantum-fold reactors, highly stable, but with one interesting quirk. They're paranoid about radiation leaks." Rodriguez finished, remembering the intelligence from captured Kryvax databases. "Their species is particularly vulnerable to certain types of radiation. That's why they over-engineer their containment systems." Their own base, established in secret months before the invasion, had given them the perfect vantage point to study Kryvax operations. Now it would serve as the launching point for humanity's most daring operation yet. "Walking us through the plan one more time, sir?" Sergeant Mike Torres asked, checking his modified EVA suit. Rodriguez activated a detailed simulation of their target. Operation False Flag. "We're going in with the Trojan horse gambit, but with a twist. Instead of hiding inside something they want, we're going to use something they fear." The hologram showed their modified transport ship, its hull deliberately damaged and emitting a very specific radiation signature, the same type that sent Kryvax safety protocols into overdrive. "The moment their sensors detect our radiation leak, they'll follow their own protocols," Foster added. "Full containment procedures. They'll have to bring us inside their shielding to prevent contamination of their base." Torres grinned. "And once we're inside, we own them," Rodriguez confirmed. "Team Alpha will secure their command center. Beta takes their communications hub. Charlie plants the quantum transmitters. We'll have 30 minutes before their next scheduled check-in with the fleet." The 12 members of his special operations team made final equipment checks. Their suits were a marvel of human engineering, combining captured Kryvax tech with good old-fashioned thermal shielding and radiation hardening. "Remember," Rodriguez continued, "we're not just after tactical data. Intelligence suggests the Phobos base contains their strategic archives. We need to know why they really came to our system." The team boarded their transport, a ship deliberately aged and damaged to look like a desperate civilian mining vessel. As they lifted off from the hidden Martian base, Rodriguez thought about how far humanity had come. From fighting with primitive weapons to orchestrating complex deceptions in space, all in a matter of months. "Radiation containment failing," Foster announced, "right on schedule. Sending distress signal on all Kryvax frequencies." The response was immediate. Their sensors detected multiple Kryvax vessels rising from Phobos' surface, approaching with caution. A transmission came through in their now familiar telepathic broadcast. "Unidentified vessel, you are releasing hazardous radiation. Power down immediately for emergency containment." "This is mining vessel Helios," Rodriguez transmitted back, adding panic to his voice. "We have critical reactor damage. Please, we can't shut it down. Our containment is failing." The Kryvax ships surrounded them, their sensors probing the deliberately leaking radiation. Just as predicted, their safety protocols took over. Tractor beams engaged, pulling the damaged vessel toward a massive hangar bay in the crater base. "All teams, ready," Rodriguez whispered as they were drawn inside. "Remember, we're terrified civilians about to have an unfortunate accident with our radiation suits." The moment their ship touched down in the quarantine bay, alarms blared throughout the Kryvax facility. Emergency containment fields sprang up, cutting off their ship from reinforcements, just as planned. "Containment teams approaching," Foster reported. 6 Kryvax in radiation suits. Rodriguez allowed himself a small smile. "Perfect number. Teams, execute on my mark." As the Kryvax emergency responders approached their ship, none of them suspected that the radiation leak was a ruse, or that the panicked miners were actually Earth's most elite special operations unit. They were about to learn that humans had perfected the art of deception long before reaching space. Mark. The hunt was on, and this time, humanity was the predator. Admiral Sarah Steele Davidson stood before the quantum hologram of the Drachnid Consortium's representative, trying not to show her amazement at the crystalline entity's ever-shifting form. After 20 years in diplomatic service before the invasion, she thought she'd seen everything. She was wrong. "You expect us to believe," the Drachnid's translated voice chimed, "that a primitive species managed to capture intact data cores from a Kryvax fortress." "Not just data cores," Davidson replied, triggering the secure data stream they'd prepared. "Their entire strategic archive, including their real reason for entering our system." The Phobos raid had yielded far more than expected. Major Rodriguez's team had discovered that Earth's solar system wasn't just another target for the Kryvax's protection racket. It was to be their new base of operations for a massive expansion into Drachnid territory. The crystalline being's form pulsed with what Davidson had learned to recognize as interest. "These mining operations they've established are actually forward staging areas," Davidson confirmed. "The Kryvax aren't just extorting us. They're using our system's resources to build an invasion fleet. Your territory is their real target. We're just the convenient staging ground." The hologram flickered as the Drachnid processed this information. Behind Davidson, in Earth's new combined fleet command center, dozens of officers held their breath. Everything hinged on this moment. "Your species has proven surprisingly capable," the Drachnid admitted. "The loss rate among Kryvax operations in your system is unprecedented. Our analysts have been most impressed by your innovative tactics." Davidson allowed herself a small smile. "Humanity has a long history of fighting against technologically superior forces. We've learned to be creative." "Yes. Your belt massacres have become something of a legend already. Several criminal syndicates are reconsidering their expansion plans after studying those reports." The Admiral activated another data stream, this one showing the modified mining vessels that had wreaked such havoc on Kryvax supply lines. "We're proposing an alliance, not just against the Kryvax, but for future security. Our primitive methods combined with your advanced technology could reshape the balance of power in this sector." The Drachnid's form shifted to a deeper hue, a sign of serious consideration. "You would grant us basing rights." "A legitimate trading post in our system," Davidson countered, "under strict protocols, in exchange for shield-piercing technology and recognition of Earth's sovereign territory." And the Kryvax will find themselves caught between their intended victims. Their entire strategy relies on superior technology and predictable responses. We've proven they can't handle either human unpredictability or Drachnid power. Together, we can end their threat permanently. The crystalline being pulsed rapidly, their equivalent of calculating possibilities. "There is elegance in your proposal. The Kryvax have long hidden behind their technological advantage. Watching them fall to primitive tactics has been enlightening." Davidson played her final card. "We're offering you something no other species can, a completely new way of thinking about space warfare. Our traditional military strategies, combined with your advanced technology, would make us unbeatable." The hologram brightened suddenly. "The consortium accepts your proposal. We will dispatch a fleet immediately. The Kryvax must not be allowed to establish a foothold in your system. After the transmission ended, Colonel Martinez stepped forward. Think they suspect our real plan? Davidson shook her head. The Drachnid hate the Kryvax too much to look too closely. By the time they realize we're using this alliance to jumpstart humanity's position in galactic politics, it'll be too late to stop us. And the Kryvax are about to learn why you should never drive two enemies into each other's arms. She turned to the command center's main display, where the combined fleet preparations were already underway. Humanity doesn't just want to survive this war. We're going to use it to secure our place among the stars. As alert klaxons began to sound, signaling the approach of the first Drachnid vessels, Davidson allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The Kryvax had hoped to find an easy conquest. Instead, they'd awakened humanity's most dangerous talent, the ability to turn enemies into allies. The real game was just beginning. Commander Michael Phoenix Reeves watched the combined Earth-Drachnid fleet emerge from quantum space, a sight that would have been impossible just months ago. The Kryvax flagship, a massive crystalline dreadnought dubbed the Eternal Night, hung against the backdrop of Saturn's rings, surrounded by what remained of their once mighty invasion force. All ships reporting ready, his tactical officer announced. Drachnid vessels have synchronized their shield frequencies with ours. Remember, Reeves broadcast to the fleet, we stick to the plan. The Drachnid handle their energy weapon specialists. We take care of their predictable combat eye. No mercy for pirates. The Kryvax didn't wait for diplomacy. Their fleet launched forward in perfect formation, their crystalline ships glowing with charged weapons. But something was different about their approach, less mechanical, more desperate. They've disabled their combat eye, his sensor officer reported with surprise. They're fighting manually. Reeves smiled grimly. Looks like they finally learned. But too late. Execute Operation Endgame. The Earth fleet split into seemingly chaotic patterns, their movements based on old sea warfare tactics that had once confused human enemies. The Drachnid ships, as agreed, maintained their traditional formation, drawing the Kryvax's main attention. Shadow drives online, engineering reported. But sir, they're ready for the quantum duplicates. Who said anything about duplicates? Reeves triggered the modifications they'd spent weeks preparing. Instead of creating phantom ships, the shadow drives now generated false sensor readings of planetary debris, asteroid fields, and radiation storms, transforming the battlefield into a navigator's nightmare. The Kryvax fleet faltered, their formations breaking as they tried to process the suddenly treacherous space around them. Without their AI to guide them, they fell back on basic training, exactly as planned. All ships execute Trafalgar Gambit. Just as Admiral Nelson had split his fleet to break the French line centuries ago, the Earth ships divided the Kryvax forces. The Drachnid vessels struck from above with their newly shared shield-piercing technology, while humanity's primitive kinetic weapons struck from below. The Eternal Night tried to rally its forces, but Reeves had studied ancient naval warfare extensively. Space might be three-dimensional, but the principles of fleet command remained the same. Never let your enemy dictate the terms of engagement. Boarding teams ready, his XO reported. The Kryvax flagship shields are fluctuating. Launch. Special Forces teams, led by veterans of the Phobos raid, shot toward the crystalline dreadnought in modified assault pods. The Kryvax, expecting traditional boarding attempts, had their defenses focused on their airlocks and hangars. Instead, the human teams attached to the outer hull, using modified mining lasers to cut their way in through blind spots. Sir, multiple breaches confirmed. Team Alpha is inside. They've reached the bridge. The battle outside continued to rage, but Reeves knew the real victory would be decided by those teams. Their mission: capture, not destroy. Earth wanted the Kryvax leadership alive to witness what came next. Hours later, as the last enemy ships surrendered or fled, Reeves stood in the Eternal Night's captured bridge. The Kryvax overseer, the same one who had first threatened Earth, was secured under heavy guard. Impossible, the alien commander transmitted, his telepathic voice heavy with disbelief. Your species was primitive, unadvanced. We learned from history, Reeves replied, watching as Earth and Drachnid ships secured the sector. Every empire that thought itself invincible fell to primitives who learned to adapt. The British Empire, the Roman Empire, and now the Kryvek Syndicate. On the main view screen, a transmission from Earth appeared. The newly formed Galactic Council had unanimously recognized Earth's territorial sovereignty. More importantly, 6 other species had already requested human military advisors, eager to learn the primitive tactics that had brought down the mighty Kryveks. Your invasion didn't just fail, Reeves told the captured overseer. It launched humanity onto the galactic stage centuries ahead of schedule. So thank you for teaching us one final lesson. Never underestimate a species that turns defeat into opportunity. As the combined fleet began cleanup operations, Reeves couldn't help but smile. The stars had once seemed like a barrier. Now they were humanity's new frontier, and the galaxy was about to learn why Earth's children had always dreamed of reaching them. The age of human innovation in space had begun.